Hello there, you're very welcome along to the Guinness Storehouse. We're here for the launch of the Six Nations 2024, and who better to talk to than the Irish head coach, Mr. Andy Farrell. You're very welcome, good to talk to you.
Thanks very much, nice to be here.
I know you've been doing lots of interviews
Yeah.
all day. Can I start, what better way to start than reading a quote of yours to yourself? So I was watching...
This makes me nervous.
No, it's okay. Your Lions press conference, and congratulations. And somebody asked, would we in the documentary be seeing some of the speeches from Andy Farrell that we had seen way back when? And you said, probably won't be as dramatic. I've grown up a bit since then.
Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing. I suppose 2013, I was a young enough coach, and you still, even though you think you're in the right place, obviously you've been selected to be on a Lions tour, etc., that you're always trying to gain respect, try and impress, etc. And there's a little bit more that goes into your thought process rather than just being comfortable in your own skin. So I mean, one of the main things as a coach that you don't get to practice whilst you're a player, even if you're a captain or whatever, is standing up in front of a group, 70 people, presenting, this is the way, can you follow that, etc. You know, so
that come naturally to you?
Not really. I mean, I've never been afraid of doing that, because my office as a captain was always either in the changing room or in a meeting or whatever, but not something that I'd prepared or, you know, had a schedule in front of my face for. It was just reactive stuff, saying it from the heart and the general feeling there. So obviously on the pitch is when you get over that line, you get used to and comfortable with being able to narrate yourself through all that. But when you are front and centre and trying to set the tone for what that week looks like, what the game plan looks like, etc., I would say I worked so hard at it early that it was a little bit staged, you know, not as natural and not as flowing as it should be, because in my opinion, over the years now, leadership, in my opinion, has to be authentic, you know, and that's otherwise it feels uncomfortable. Certainly looking back, my point about that meeting was me looking back, I don't think I was being my true self.
Yes.
So therefore it's uncomfortable.
We're going to take those boys to the Hurt Arena, I think, one of the...
Well, that's what I mean, it's a bit, Hollywood.
But it's interesting, you were asked in the same press conference about your management style, and you paused and you said, it is what it is. And that line you've mentioned there, just be myself.
Yeah.
So that seems to be, if we're trying to get a sense of how you approach it, just being myself, nothing stage, authenticity all the way.
Yeah, and having a feel, because at the end of the day, it's making sure that you do things together and galvanise people so that they all feel comfortable that we're all pushing in the same direction together, and having a feel for what's going on in the room at any particular time is pretty important to get people to feel like it's their team to contribute, etc. If you're just force feeding and the days are too long, the meetings are too long, you know, they've had to turn up to the opening of an envelope, you're not going to get the best out of the group. So being able to be yourself and have a feel for that, because at the end of the day, you know, we're not teaching rocket scientists, we're teaching rugby players, so it doesn't have to be picture perfect.
Yes.
And nor should it, you know, otherwise it's a bit uncomfortable.
When you say just be myself, not to get too philosophical, but who is Andy Farrell? What is yourself? What would people say about you as head coach?
What would I like them to say? what do they really think? I mean, that's a question for them. But I hope that they feel that I care about them, not just as a player to improve them as a player, but as a person as well. I think that's pretty important for not just the players, but for the staff alike. You know, because then they're giving the best of themselves if they feel that way. I hope they think that I'm honest enough that they can trust me in a way that's the only agenda to help them, you know, and that's not patting people on the back all the time, that's telling the truth, because they know at the heart of it that I care about improving them and therefore the team.
It's interesting when we talk about coaches, it's often said in all sports, not just rugby, great players don't necessarily make great coaches. I think you made the exception to that rule.
I wasn't a great rugby union player.
Well, great athlete, but I mean, there'd be huge respect for what you did as a
Yeah.
player in league, in the room. But it does seem that actually that's given you an empathy, because I've talked to a few of the players and they feel that you really understand like how nerve-wracking it all is and how stressful it all is. And so things like at Carton House, we won't have the meetings there, that's your refuge. Or, of course, we want your families involved. We want this to be a nice environment. I think that comes from somebody who's been there, been nervous, been in big games.
And you know what? You can lose that the longer you're outside of playing. I mean, 2007, 2008 is the last time internationally, and then a year or two after that. So I've been retired a long time now, and the more that you go into the other profession, which is coaching, you can lose sight of what it really did mean. You know, a big part of my job, certainly as a head coach, is understanding what the players constantly have to turn up for. If you have to get up out of bed at a certain time, and then you've got physio, you've got a bit of prehab, you've got to go and see the dietitian, you've got to go and see the sports psych, etc. There's a lot of things that have to happen in a day, and sometimes as an assistant coach you can get wrapped up in well, I only had half an hour with them. You know, it's not about you. My job is to make sure is the dynamics of what the player's going through on a daily basis is there. Therefore it helps production of learning and growing as a team.
One of the interesting things you did across your time was around the time of the Shoulder to Shoulder documentary, you addressed that north-south under one flag dynamic. It struck me as very interesting that it was an Englishman who decided to have that conversation in such an open way. Did that strike you as a conversation that needed to happen?
It did. It did, because I obviously ask a lot of questions to try and understand it all, really, because I think I know the history. But actually talking to the people on the ground who's living it daily and whose families have been through it all, I needed to understand it properly, and I just thought getting it out there and getting the lads to understand what it is that the country's been through and what the sport has played such an important part in all of that. You know, it's stood steadfast throughout. Like, you know, you look at the dynamics of when everything's been going on, good or bad, rugby's always stood firm. People have always been coming down from the north, and people have always been going up from Dublin, still playing in the north, or those type of stories to me are unbelievably powerful. And when you look at that and what the jerseys stood throughout all that, I think it's unbelievably powerful. I think it makes it so powerful that it has to stand up against any type of jersey in world sport, never mind rugby. So I thought that had to come out from the group as well, you know, to find out the story behind the story as a whole.
Another thing that really jumps out about your coaching, I mean, disagree if it's not true, I'm sure you do plan for the long term, but I would say more than most coaches, you know, you're a 38-year-old captain, 34-year-old captain now, you don't hand out caps too easily. You're very much we're going to win the match tomorrow, and a year's time can take care of itself, is my sense. Whereas I feel, you know, Eddie Jones, other coaches would often in their press conferences speak, you know, we're planning, wait and you see in 18 months' time this is going to beautifully come to fruition. I don't feel you buy into that as much. I think you're a let's take care of the game today type. Fair?
I think about it all, and it isn't just in rugby where I analyse all that. I look at all sorts of sports, and you know, people talk about cycles, etc. But sometimes you can damage teams as well through cutting people's legs off and starting holistically all over again. You know, players have worked unbelievably hard to deserve to be able to put the Irish jersey on. Just to say we're starting again is pretty harsh in my opinion. And I believe if you deal with the here and now, that the medium term becomes a part of that. If you're concentrated on the here and now and the medium term, then the longer term part becomes clear and obvious as you go. I think having an agenda just to go, well, this is what everyone else has always done, just cut the legs off it and start again. I think we've got to be better than that. I mean, you look at this squad that's been picked now. There's a lot of caps that's been handed out over the last couple of years, and some of them have not been involved for the last 12 months or the last 18 months or whatever. There's quite a few players there under 10 caps or under 15 caps, 20 caps. So the growth is already been put in place there because they've already seen what it's all about. We need to grow that even more so now with the experienced players that we've got.
Team is a joy to watch. The attacking rugby
Thanks very much.
Is just phenomenal. I mean, you couldn't but be proud watching that team play, some of the passages they put together. I was talking to a player who I won't name, I'm sure he wouldn't thank me for it, but he was saying you have a huge hand in the attack, and your message, one of many I'm sure, but your message to the players is, I can't tell you what to do then, and then in 2 phases then, and then you do that, and if you do this, that will happen. That's not how this is going to work. That they have to make good decisions in the moment. You'll try and help them, but like the notion that here's a sheet of paper with the plan, fellas, stick to that, turn off your brains, that is not how attack works. So give us your sense of how you've got this team to play such brilliant rugby.
Well, first and foremost, they've got to want to. And that's why I feel over the last couple of years that the fans feel part of it, because it's our duty to show that side of ourselves. 2, because it suits the type of player that we've got, even though they might have not known it at the time. We're not the biggest playing nation or whatever, so I think that style fits. Having a plan A, B and C doesn't cut it neither, because there's always D, E and F. Okay. So it's always just about decision making. Now, the detail that goes in and around that is vast. Right. It is, and it's constant. I mean, to the naked eye, you see shape on TV, etc. But the shape's there to put people in position so that we can play what's on in front of us, and we do that by all being involved and shaping up to be able to complement what the opposition defence is giving us. So, but to put yourself into that position, what is it that you're looking at? Is your teammates going to help you do that? What type of speed are you playing at? How controlled are you going to be with your emotions to be able to execute that? It all comes into play, so ultimately rugby's always going to be a collision sport, but sometimes there's a bit of space to be able to go into. We'd rather do that than run into a brick wall.
Are you obsessive about the job? Are you at the kitchen table thinking about centre partnerships, and then you realise, oh sorry, someone said something to me, apologies, I was away again, or do you
just ask my wife? I mean, she's actually mentioned it to me this week, as far as me being distant. I'm not distant, I'm just thinking. I always think, when you say such about it, he's great at what he does. Like, not just sport. You actually haven't got a clue with what he's thinking on a daily basis. You can guarantee that he's the guy who's sat in a traffic jam constantly thinking something completely different of how to get better at something that he chooses to do or she chooses to do. I feel fortunate enough that I feel that way, so therefore it's certainly not work for me, Okay. It's something that I love doing. The dynamics of a team, of how it comes together, is something that I've been brought up with.
So then you just say, apologies, say again, and she says, forget about it.
Exactly.
Forget about it.
Exactly that.
In terms of team selection, so, I mean, take your second row. That's going to be an interesting conversation. Yeah. You and the coaching ticket to decide who starts, because any of the 4 really could, I would think.
Yeah.
Brian Clough had that great saying about him and his staff, well, we'll talk about it and then they'll all agree that I was right in the first place. Are you dictator in that sense? Do you have your idea of who's going to start, and I'm not going to be talked out of it? Or quite often, could somebody in the coaching ticket twist your arm?
I think if you close like that, then you don't get the right voices in the room anyway. Everyone's got to be able to have a voice and have an opinion. Hopefully they understand the type of game that we all agree that we want to play, and we act accordingly to that. But ultimately, if there's a call to make, obviously that comes down to me. If somebody's got a better idea than me, then I've got to be open enough to be able to go with that, which hopefully I am.
Okay.
So and vice versa, they have to do exactly the same, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's me that's leading it, so I have to be responsible in that as far as that's concerned.
You're heading the blocks. So, if, for instance, I mean, if it's you think A and the other three think B, are we going with A?
Not if they can convince me. I mean,
I'd say you're a tough man to convince.
No, I wouldn't say that, because doing it together is unbelievably powerful. You know, if you've got an organisation where people don't care whose idea it was, you know, you're in a good spot. You know, 'cause there's no egos, and there's certainly no egos within our group as far as that's concerned. So, hopefully, others don't feel that I'm that way inclined.
Yes, an aspect which must be tough. You know, so you've been in dressing rooms since you were as long as you can remember, I would think, at this stage. But you've talked there about the importance of people. So, as coach, for instance, somebody like Joey Carberry, there a long time, starts in Paris that night in the 22 Six Nations, and you have to do what you feel is right and make the right decision for the team. Things like making those phone calls to Joey. Are you at a point in your life where that is unbelievably difficult and you feel awful about it? Or are you more towards the end of the spectrum, look, I've been in so many dressing rooms, it's just business, I can't lose sleep over that?
I think if you can't lose sleep over that, not that I do lose sleep, I mean care for the individual, 100%, because I know that it's everyone's dream, like, you know. But ultimately, if I go back to what I said originally, that whether they like it in real time or not, that they have to understand it's me trying to help them to get better as a player. And sometimes that's not always what they want to hear, but you can't keep going down conversation after conversation without something happening. So the tough conversations have to happen eventually, you know, and to deal with that type of conversation, you know, the only thing that goes through my mind is what's right for the team, and what's right for the individual who I'm speaking to as well. And if you adhere to that, then you can't go wrong, really, because that's your responsibility, to do what's right for the team, and you know, there has to be a little bit of a full stop after that. Yes, okay.
World Cup 2023. How do you categorise it?
I'm disappointed in not getting through to the next stage, and it's not a semi-final. We're after winning the thing. You know, it's something that we built up for over the last few years, and felt we was in a good position to be able to do that. But I'm also a realist that these type of things happen, and that's just life, and you learn from them and move on. And I look back on that certainly with the years to come. I wouldn't say this week or in the next 6 months, you know, because we're pretty busy, and we'll be proud of aspects of memories from that World Cup, the connection with the fans, etc., and some of the rugby that we did play. But we learn from all sorts of games, not just losing. It's the winning part as well. What could we have done better? And you know, the reality is that we was 13 points down after 12 minutes. Now, I thought we showed good fight to come back, because we've seen the All Blacks teams of old just run away with it, you know, and end up winning with 30 odd points. But
I'm sure that crossed your mind at the time.
We was in with a chance, you know, could have, would have, should have. But at the end of the day, we'd been starting pretty well for the last 18 months or so, and at that first 20 minutes, for all different sorts of reasons, it wasn't just one thing, wasn't as fluent as we would have wanted, but we'll learn from that as well.
Okay. Can you share any of the reasons as to why you think it wasn't as fluid?
Again, it wasn't just one thing, but it was a combination of things. And sometimes I think when you become too desperate, it becomes a bit of a disease, and you need to calm yourself down, have a realization of things accumulating that shouldn't accumulate, whether it be somebody penalised at the breakdown, and then we go to the line out, and somebody penalised there, somebody then penalised in the scrum, or somebody's offside or whatever. They all marry up, and therefore it becomes the type of pressure that you don't want to throw upon yourself. But again, after 20 minutes, we dealt with that and got back on the horse, but it wasn't to be in the end. Yeah,
something I'm very curious for your thoughts on, because it's often said in the world of punditry, is that this very fluid, to use your word, style of rugby that Ireland at their best play, when the pressure is really on tournament rugby, cup rugby, knockout rugby, that perhaps just that inevitable slight tightening has more of an effect on that style of rugby than, I don't know, a quintessential South African.
Then we need to get better at that. I mean, you know, I think we have been good at it in the past, you know, being in a 3-game series and having to win the second one and then having to win the third one to be successful is the ultimate pressure, really. And then putting yourself in a position to get into the last day and maybe go for a Grand Slam or whatever. Those are all type of pressure moments, and we've tried to put ourselves in that type of position, whether it be an autumn series, used it as a quarter-final, semi-final, final. So we put the pressure on ourselves internally, you know, and we've been pretty good at getting it over the line, but it doesn't always work.
No,
it doesn't always work.
Sport.
You can't guarantee it to work, you know.
How many times have you watched that game back?
I reckon 4 or 5 times, and we go back into camp now, and I'll probably show it 3 or 4 times more, not as a whole, but in bit parts, you know, to make sure that we get the best out of it.
Does your first watch when you're at the game generally tally with what you see watching 4 or 5 times later?
Yeah, but you obviously analyse it, and it's all well and good, you know, in looking back at a video, but you have got to understand what the players are going through and the emotion that they're feeling at that moment in time as well. So being a realist, it's easy to look back on it now clinically a couple of months after and take all the emotion out of it and being critical, you know. So you've got to understand what happens in real time, and you know you learn that as a coach by making sure that you understand in training what real time looks like too as well, because if you're just the type of coach that watches a video and said, oh, I've seen this and this, well, how's the player supposed to see it if you can't see it, you know? So being a realist is important.
It strikes me that one of the most difficult aspects of your job must be making decisions in real time during the 80 minutes. You know, we can all do it on a Monday or in a TV studio afterwards. You're doing this 4 years now. Do you feel you're much better, or saying maybe being an assistant coach was good enough grounding? Do you feel you're better in game, making decisions, seeing what's going on, or no real change over the last 4 years?
Well, if I'm not seeing change, then I'm doing the wrong thing, aren't I? You know, so it's always about self-improvement and growth, putting yourself in a situation the whole time. You know, I mean, I actually love coaching. I bet it would be annoying watching a game with me, because I see every game that I watch as an opportunity to what would I do, how would I grow, how would I do this. So you can imagine the fast forwarding, the pausing, etc. can be pretty frustrating if you're watching a game with me, you know. But getting out there and watching whatever may happen, whether it be a kid's game at school or whatever, I don't tend to watch many things as a fan, you know.
Okay, passively, yeah. You've been in dressing rooms for 32 years professionally. What would you have done if rugby hadn't been in your world?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I suppose you'd have to ask somebody else that, you know. Probably my wife would give you a better answer, you know. I don't know. Whatever it would have been. Would it have been the sporting world? I don't know, but hopefully I would have had the same passion as what I've got now, because I don't class this as a job really,
Yes.
you know.
And have you ever, like all that time and as a coach, have you ever looked at other professions, worlds, industries and thought, God, I wouldn't mind a crack at that? Or are you as enthused and happy where you are as ever?
I look at all sides of all sides of business, sport, life, and see what I can love. I love talking to someone who's under a bit of pressure themselves, and who relishes that and how they deal with that. You know, that's intriguing to me, because it can be a lonely place if you think you're on your own. But if you look outside the box, really, there's a lot of people in those type of positions. You know, so in any walk of life, talking to people in that regard is intriguing to me. You know, reading podcasts, all that type of stuff is something where I feel you can grow and add. You know, I mean, take for example, all the coaches that I've had, I've been lucky enough to have some unbelievable coaches, but you take the good, the bad and the ugly from them all, and try and make sure that you galvanise it in your way, because ultimately we go back to the start of the conversation. It's about fitting it to be yourself, you know, and I've been fortunate to be around a lot of special people in that regard that you can learn from.
Any coaches from other sport offer a word of advice that struck you, or anybody that you thought, God, I'm so glad I had a coffee with that person? If you're happy to divulge, maybe it's private.
No, I mean, I wouldn't throw people's names out there, because a lot of it would have been in their confidence as well. But any type of conversation that I would have with anyone, I mean, we're here now at the Six Nations launch, and just be able to speak to the other coaches, you know.
You don't trust what Gatlin's telling you, do you?
No, because you understand the kidology that goes along with that, but understanding, you know, what's going on in their lives and how they are dealing with all that, because you understand what's coming for them also. So communication is the best form of making sure that you understand what direction you want to go in your life, you know, because it triggers all sorts of different meanings, doesn't it?
You generally, I would say, watching your media dealings over the last however many years, very even-tempered, in control of your message. I thought one of the few times, and understandably, we saw you a little bit fed up was when you were asked about the circus around Owen's tackle last year, and you said, I find the whole thing a bit disgusting, actually. You clearly felt a little bit irked enough by that to say this has gone too far. Yeah,
because it was the perfect storm, wasn't it? Like, you know, and the build up and the carry on, and you know, red card, not red card, and social media, everything that went with it. It's not sport. It's not what we all signed up for. Like, you know, it has to be fair along the way. Like, you know, and you know, I just think sometimes it takes a lot, because I understand, you know, people's got a job to do and whatever. It takes a lot for me to get like that, but enough's enough at times as well.
I didn't understand, and I know you talking about Owen is not an area that you like going to, understandably. One thing I didn't understand is when a portion of England fans were booing him. Now, he would strike me as the kind of player Irish fans would love to hate, and you know, Welsh fans would love to hate, because he's, you know, Johnny Sexton, the best players often are.
Yeah.
I could not understand English fans booing Owen Farrell. That must have left you open-mouthed.
Again, I think it was the perfect storm, like, you know, the build-up of all the tackle, the suspension, suspended, not suspended, playing, not playing, England starting well. You know, I get why, you know, there could be this type of build-up, but yeah, it's not that you have to agree with it.
Yes. Life in Ireland, you've been here how many years?
8 years.
8 years?
8 years, yeah.
Wow, that's flown by.
Yeah.
I'm told you're sometimes seen on a GAA sideline.
yeah, Clonagale, yeah.
Your life here?
Yeah, we love it. We love life here. I've one daughter back over in London, living not too far away from Owen. That's where they was brought up, really. I mean, we're all from Wigan, but the girls, we moved down south towards London when they were 6 and 3, so they was brought up there for certainly all those school years, etc. And then we had Gabriel a little bit later on in life, and he started school in the UK, but he'd done 1 year, and now he's been in school in Dublin ever since, like, you know. So that's all he's ever known, really. One daughter lives over here with us. She's working. Myself and my wife, and the 12-year-old are loving life, you know. I think it's a great place to live, certainly for families, you know, and the people are great as well.
Because you're in the public eye massively, and yet I think you keep a nicely low profile. Like, you've never done the Late Late Show interview. I'm sure you've been asked.
No, you've got to. And this is how I always was as a player. Like, you know, I was a rugby player, and I'd hope I was a type of character on the field. I wasn't one for being that type of character off the field, really, because I just classed myself as a rugby player. I wanted to just concentrate on that. I suppose there's a little bit of a knock-on effect from that, but I don't want to be pushed down people's throats all the time either, you know. People will get fed up with me. That's the way I climb, because I want to be known as a rugby player, a rugby coach, somebody who loves that. I don't want to be, or whatever.
Yes, here he is again.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
If you had gone on the Late Late Show, they would almost certainly have asked Farrell. We must own you some way back. Have you looked into it?
Yeah. And I whisper it because there's plenty of letters that keep coming our way as well. But the third generation further down the track. And
do you know what part of the country?
Yeah, for ourselves, County Longford.
Right.
Yeah, and
rugby stronghold.
There's plenty of Farrells there anyway. But no, from where we grew up in the mining town of Wigan, there's a lot of Irish connection that's down that belt there from Liverpool up to Manchester, you know, stronghold.
Well, you know, a final thought, funny you mentioned that. It's you know, there is something interesting in that Jack Charlton, obviously, Ireland coach, north of England, mining town,
yeah,
and yourself. Seems to be a bit of an affinity between Northern England, Ireland. You sense that? You feel that?
For somebody from the north of England, certainly the northwest, to move down to London, that's a big move.
Right.
That's a big move. It's something completely different, you know. But coming up to Dublin from London, it certainly felt more comfortable to us, you know.
Interesting.
Family orientated, everyone looking out for one another, etc. And yeah, I suppose the connections there within the history, isn't it? You know, of ports of call going over to Liverpool, etc.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been a hell of a 4 years, your first 4 years in charge, more of the same over the next 4, and I think we'd all be very happy. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.